All right, there's new firmware for the Axe FX 3. The first thing you want to do if you're using Axe Edit is go to Settings and hit Refresh after new firmware, and any new features that are added to the firmware will now be available in Axe Edit. So this is a really, really handy trick and will save you a lot of heartache if you do this every time you dial up a new firmware. Then, if you're going, hey, where's my new amp models or where's my new effects, and you haven't refreshed, well, that's why. So that will take a little second and then we'll get straight into it. Let's start with the new features. You can see here, there is this brand new IR player block, which is essentially a simplified version of the cab block. We have just got low cut, high cut, filter slope, mode between high or standard res, and just the ability to pick from a user or a factory slot. So it's all pretty straightforward. The main advantage with this IR player block, I find, is to use it to load up tone matches, which I'm doing in this preset at the moment. You can see this says DSL 50 tone match, and what I did, you can find the video actually on my channel, is basically use the tone match feature to match my DSL 50 amp. So I used a load box and then used the tone match block, and then I exported the tone match block into a user slot, as you can see here, user slot number 74 on my Axe FX, which I've called DSL 52. It was a second attempt, and it's the one which I think sounds the best. So the cool thing about this is you, with like a standard tone match, if you're matching like a mic'd up amp, the IR is like baked into the tone match. Whereas with this, I've done it by matching an amp model with no IR to the DI signal from a loaded down head, so that I can load up my tone match in this IR player block and then run it into any cab that I like, meaning that it's just a little bit more versatile. So I can kind of I can treat the amp and the IR player block like my real head and then run them into a variety of different cabinets with different microphone positions. And this sounds pretty cool. I'll give you an example with the, in this case, I've got a couple of factory cabs. These are greenback cabs, sounds like this. As you can see there, I can switch over to another cab, which is pretty cool, I think. So that is the IR player block. Another advantage of this is if you wanted to use a tone match of an acoustic guitar, for example, which would be really easy to do with the Axe FX 3. Just plug your piezo output into input number 1 and then mic up your acoustic guitar and run it into input 2 and use the amp match feature. You could load up acoustic IRs or guitar pickup IRs as well. You can find them available. So you would just run those in front of your amp, or even matching pedals if you wanted to do that as well. So the IR player, to me, is super handy when you use it with the tone match feature, because it means you can just export those tone matches and use them in a variety of different ways. I mean, there's just a couple of ways you can use it. Or if you've got a preset which is absolutely stacked with effects and you don't have room for a cab block, you do save a little bit of CPU. And I can't hear the difference. This is just a standard cab block. So aside from the IR player blocks, I think probably the biggest new feature is in the looper block. Let's go there from the front panel. You can see that we've got our standard looper controls here, but if I page across, we've got a couple of new parameters, namely this record threshold, which is really cool. So if you turn this on, you can set the threshold that your input signal will have to exceed before the looper starts recording. And in this case, when you've got it on, so I've got the threshold set to -61, and I hit record, you can see that it will start blinking, and this is automatically going to start recording when I start playing. So this is really handy if you ever have trouble kind of syncing up like your stomp or your press with your playing. I'll give you an example. And then you can also see there that I can use this trim end control basically to trim the end of the loop, which is super handy. I mean, I do a lot of amp demo videos and I use the looper quite a lot. So this actually means that I can sort of cut out any like gaps at the start or end of a phrase and get a perfect loop happening. If we page across, the other thing that you can do is just record second press. You can have it either to initiate an immediate overdub, which is where I had it set there, or just to go to play. So if we do that again, I'll arm record. And then when I start playing, I can play my riff. When I press record again, it will stop recording and only give me playback. So that is pretty cool. Paging across again, you can set the loop to playback at half speed or at full speed. At half speed, it's pretty fun. You get this. Which is pretty cool. And you've also got high cut, low cut, and bypass mode. So a couple of cool little features there. I really like this ability here to set the record threshold. I'm going to use this heaps for my amp demo videos. So I really like that. And we can also quantize loops. If you set that on, basically it will quantize your loops to match up with the tempo. So if you tap the tempo in, for example, if you're playing live, or if you have your stuff all synced up to backing tracks or a click, then you can turn the looper on, and basically when you turn it off, everything will kind of get shifted so that it's in time so that you have a perfect little loop. There are a couple of other improvements with MIDI CC and stuff like that, and like volume increment that I'm not using a MIDI controller at the moment, so I can't demo them. But otherwise, go and check out the Fractal Audio forum if you want a rundown of all these kind of things. And otherwise, keep enjoying your Axe FX3, and I will see you guys for the next video. Cheers!